Today I'm bringing on Teresa Bassett of the Diamond Group, and they are a sales and marketing company. Where are you out of, Teresa?
We're based in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wilmington, North Carolina. Great. And Teresa has a story to tell that I think is really timely and really ties into my upcoming webinar on the 5Ds that can sink your business. And Teresa's story is the story of a business owner who had some foresight, thankfully, but was able to keep her company running even when she got really ill and wasn't able to work for several months. Right, Teresa?
Yeah, absolutely. I was certainly did not have the foresight into getting sick, but I knew that doing what I was doing, I was not setting the business up for success because I was wearing too many hats, and I was making the company vulnerable.
Yeah, definitely.
As a result.
Yeah, and companies are at risk when the business owner is not just running the business, but also a key person in the business as far as whether it's rainmaker, they're bringing in the revenue, or they're the process person running the admin. Whatever role they're playing is critical to the running of that business and the continuation of that business. If that business owner gets sick or hurt, it can be devastating. It can sink the business overnight, literally.
Literally would have sank me overnight because those hats you're talking about, I was wearing at least 2 or 3 of those hats.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, I was rainmaking, but then also servicing the accounts, and then, try and piece together the process at the same time. So we were way too vulnerable to my roles at that point. Yeah.
So what kind of opened your eyes to that? I mean, you started just assessing the situation, and what steps did you take to correct that so that you found yourself in a much better position when you did get sick?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking. That's a great question. Well, I'm always reading. I'm always listening to things. I'm always trying to learn. And so my eyes had been opened for a couple of years prior to to taking any action. And I kind of could see what I wasn't doing well. I just hadn't done anything about it yet. Right.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Right. And so I kind of knew there was something else available. I just hadn't, I always perceived we just didn't have the money to hire people. Right. There was just like a perception of lack. But then I realized that I really could feel in my own body that the stress that it was taking, the toll it was taking on me, and I could see how it was affecting everything. And so I had run into a gal at a conference, and I thought she was just super sharp, and I really liked her. And the glimmer, I connected the dots, and I was like, what if I actually did, find somebody that could help me with these accounts? And what if I wasn't chief rainmaker and servicing the accounts? What if I could really define our processes, teach her the process, and then get her to help me on this side of the business? And it seemed like just a distant dream when I first had that thought. It was like, oh my goodness, that would be amazing. But I really still didn't see how to do that. But I guess the leap of faith that I took first was I interviewed her, because I was like, well, I have to step into this vision somehow. And here's a non-committal step that I could take. It's not going to cost me any money to do this yet.
Right.
Right. Let's see if this is actually even a possibility. And so I stepped out and I talked to her, and I just shared kind of what I saw the business needed.
The vision.
The vision of it, and kind of where I saw our vulnerabilities. And she said, well, I think I can help you with that. And that gave me, a little encouragement.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess that was really the first, connecting of the dot moment, and when I started taking some action on it. And then honestly, it was just internal. I just felt convicted. I just once I started to get my mind around that idea, I almost felt like I started to feel like it was a risk that I couldn't afford not to take.
Yeah, very true.
And I don't know what really drove that, other than, I am a spiritual person, and I do think that there's a lot of protection being leveraged for my good. And I do think that I was getting some guidance from my inner GPS. I was saying, Teresa, pay attention,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Teresa, pay attention. And I've heard that guidance in my life before. And so I have learned that I better listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even when I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And literally, my husband and my business partner thought I was nuts, right? Just thought I was crazy. Like, what are you even thinking about? We couldn't even possibly afford to do this. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to him, Kelly, I don't think we can afford not to.
Bingo. Yep. Yep.
And that was a full 7 months before my immune system literally went under.
Yeah. That I was going to ask you what the length of time was. So 7 months, and you had time to get her in there, work on the processes, get things up to snuff, and then boom, you get hit with this. And she's in place. Maybe 7 months isn't a long time, but at least it was long enough to get her entrenched in there, right?
It was amazing, Diane, because all the accounts I had transferred over to her, we had already defined the processes enough. I had some support staff that was geared up to help her by that point. And the clients had a relationship with her by then.
That's the important part. That's
right. It wasn't just me. And so that was really the key piece, because we didn't make any announcements to the clients at all. We didn't tell them that I was sick.
Slowly. Yeah.
We didn't tell them anything. And I was completely disabled from work. Email, couldn't read an email, couldn't write an email, couldn't watch TV or read a book. Like, no input was possible. I got spinal meningitis, and literally my brain just went into almost like a winter state.
Yeah.
And I had to relearn how to walk. I couldn't, do anything. And so she, at that point, because she had the relationships with the clients, she just maintained the continuity of relationship. And I remember it was like a light bulb moment, I think probably about 2 or 3 months after I kind of came out of this winter state. And I remember her saying, yeah, one of our clients just discovered you were sick and she's wishing you well. But none of the clients knew, Diane.
That's amazing.
Which was amazing, because if she hadn't been there, if I hadn't made those moves, honestly, I don't think we would have had a business at the end of the 6 months.
Yeah. And this happens frequently, where the business owner does something happens to them. They get sick or hurt. They're still running the business. They don't have anyone in place. Number one. Number two, the clients don't know that person, if there is somebody, and they don't have a relationship. And a lot of our business is based on relationship, right?
Oh, totally. And you know what? You're so right. I hadn't thought about it, but even if we had identified her and she was newer, we couldn't have done it. It wouldn't have been the same. And my poor husband and business partner, I mean, he already had to carry on so much without me.
Right.
If we hadn't had her in place as a key employee, I also think, I don't know that, what he would have done.
Not only that, but you're his business partner, but he probably had all the stuff to do around the household and maintain all that too.
Oh yeah, we had two kids at home. My mom came and stayed with us. When I got out of the hospital, she came and made food and, tried to help glue the household together. But he was working from home, taking care of the kids, doing all the household stuff. And then on top of it, running the business.
Yeah, that's nuts. I remember when my husband was ill, I was taking care of him and taking care of the business and trying to sell our rental house and our primary house, because we had to downsize to a single level because he couldn't do stairs. So I totally get it. I've been in that situation. Fortunately or unfortunately,
Yeah. Well, that's probably what fuels your passion for helping business owners get in front of that wave.
Exactly. And now to your point too, I kept saying I have to find my clone, right?
Yeah.
I have to find my clone. And I had a similar thing happen where I was at a networking event, and there's a young lady who was marketing for a plumbing company. And we started talking, and she starts telling me about all this experience she had in the insurance business. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Ding,
And
ding, ding.
And I said, if you are ever looking for something different, come talk to me first. And that was like July, was the summer. Well, fast forward December, I get a text from her. Are you still interested in talking to me? I'm like, oh, heck yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just knew I had to do it.
Right.
Because we weren't going to grow. My husband had passed. I had dwindled down to just me as a salesperson and an admin. There was no growth.
Yeah, so smart.
And I started a second company. So I was trying to work with business owners to help them get out of their own way, and I couldn't get out of my own way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way it happens sometimes. But you said something really important. Like, you planted a seed. It connected a dot when she said that about her insurance experience. You planted a seed, and then it took several months before that seed actually popped out of the ground.
Yeah. But also, to your point, I believe in divine intervention. And I think that even just thinking that, I had to find my clone, and speaking that, put that out there, so that when I was able to find her and found out her background, it all just fell into place. And now my team is 99% running that company.
That's amazing, Diane. Yeah, that's so amazing. And
I would say we're still upside down monetarily, because I had to take a big leap of faith and risk to get her in there. But I knew I had to do that in order to get the company shored up, number one. Number two, to free me up to go help other clients.
Yeah, well, that's so wise. I think I was falling into this category too, and my husband too at a certain point. But the illusion that staying the same is staying the same, or like maintaining is like, oh well, we'll just maintain.
Right.
Well, the reality of it is that is a fault. That is an illusion, because one, your competition in the world is moving, no matter what you're doing, right? But also, like, we are aging. Things are happening. Our family members are aging. Yep. There is really no stay the same.
That's right. That's right.
So you really have to be ready for you have to be ready for the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard it said many times, staying at the same place is still moving backwards. Right. Because
that's exactly right.
You're losing ground. So like you, I didn't want that to happen. I didn't feel like it was time for that to happen to that company. I saw a future for it. So I had to make that future secure. Right? Yeah. Which is what you've really done by getting people in place and freeing yourself up. So what exactly are you doing in the business now? What's your role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're in the process of scaling. And so I'm still managing, kind of overseeing several departments, but I'm now, not the only rainmaker. I'm still participating and supporting the team, but we're growing several departments simultaneously. That move and seeing what happened in hindsight, right? Looking back and going, aha, that kind of set off a chain reaction. We've never been able to unknow what we now know. Yeah. Because now, so we're continuing on this trajectory to having the business really be able to function without us in the day-to-day operations. We're not there yet either, but we're making strides, and we have a really strong, talented team. And that first bold move, even though it felt well ahead of its time, actually was the perfect time. And it set off a chain reaction that we've now, like, we're never going back.
Great. Well, that is a super story. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'd also say that having a life and health insurance agency, one of the big things I'd like to work with business owners on is having disability coverage, not just for themselves, but also for their employees. We did a lot of that during COVID, because a lot of business owners all of a sudden got scared and said, if my employees get sick for any length of time, number one, they're not going to be able to survive. Number two, I want to make sure that they're okay, so we put a lot of that in place for them. But also there's a plan called a business overhead expense for the business owners. And that actually pays the fixed business expenses when the business owner is sick or hurt.
Oh, that's amazing. I've never heard of that.
This is the problem.
This is why you're here to educate us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Really?
Actually, it starts paying after 30 days. So
Wow.
the 30 days, usually a business can survive, but after
Yeah.
that, it's going to start hitting them where it hurts.
Right.
So though you had somebody in place to hopefully create revenue and take care of the accounts, having that overhead coverage coming in would have
Huge.
also shorted up a little bit more. I had a veterinarian friend who stepped off a curb and broke both ankles. How she did that, I don't know. But then she couldn't do surgery, which is 80% of her revenue.
Oh my goodness.
Business overhead pays her fixed expenses, salaries, and also pays for another person, another veterinarian, to come in and do surgeries.
Oh, that's so smart.
And it's super
Well,
inexpensive.
You and I need to have an offline conversation about that, Diane.
I wanted to get that out there because, like you, a lot of business owners don't even know that exists.
I have literally never even heard of that.
And I fault the insurance industry for doing that. They're not getting the word out there.
No, they're not. And we have really good policies in other places, but that particular type of policy it never has come up. So I'm so glad that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is another one of those moments of divine intervention. You just don't know.
Kismet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm so glad that it turned out well for you. Not only that, but that you're okay today. And my husband actually passed away with spinal meningitis. So I get it. Yeah. He just went through chemo and he didn't have an immune system. And somehow he contracted spinal meningitis and they didn't listen to me and do a spinal tap.
Oh my goodness, Diane, I'm so sorry. Well, that spinal meningitis can be something people don't really recover from.
Yeah, well, they throw all kinds of antibiotics in your body to see if it's going to level off, but they started doing that the day before he passed, and that was already 3 weeks in.
Oh, Diane, that's devastating. I'm so
that
sorry.
Really hit my heart when you said that. It's just it didn't have to happen that way.
Didn't have to happen that way. You're so right. Wow. Well, I applaud you for your efforts in helping shore up business owners and educating, thank you for educating me today. And thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. I was thinking that, like we talked about just a slight minute beforehand, like if we could save a business owner, just even one from having a devastating, disability or divorce or death or something take them down the river in their business. If we could help them, then these conversations are more worth their weight in gold. Yeah.
And we always say crisis planning is no planning. So you don't want to be in the crisis and have to figure it out. And you really
jeopardize. That's not the time.
Yeah, you not only jeopardize the business, but you're jeopardizing your loved ones and your employees and their families.
Yeah. So, you really can't afford to be an ostrich with your head in the sand.
No, not
really
at all.
True.
Well, thank you again so much. And for everybody else's knowledge, Teresa and I belong to a large national mastermind called Pinnacle Global Network, and that's where I met Teresa. And I heard part of her story and said, I've got to get her on camera and get this word out to the business owners. So really appreciate you being here today. And as an exit planner, you're going to exit your business someday, and it may not be voluntary.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel so blessed to have, made your acquaintance, and I'm sure that we're going to get an opportunity together to help a lot of business owners in the process. And this Go-Giver community that we're a part of is such it's such an important piece of the puzzle. And business owners, I think we so many of us, I know I did before, I just felt alone. And you're like trying to gather this information and you're always trying to learn, but at the same time, you're just doing a lot of things.
Yeah. And sometimes not the right things.
And sometimes not the right things. Yeah, exactly. So thank you for the service that you do to these business owners and helping to fortify their businesses.
Thank you, Teresa. And I look forward to seeing you and your husband, Kelly, in a couple of weeks in California for our next event. So
that sounds great.
A lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Diane. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Okay.